Now here's the thing. I did a video on RC stock racing not too long ago, and for the most part it went over pretty well. However, I never really talked about much about whether or not all of those upgrades where I mentioned were actually necessary to do well at all. In this video, we're going to be talking about exactly that. How to work with what you have and not feel like you're falling behind. The rules of this video are simple. All we're going to do is go over each part of the car and see what exactly I'd recommend you can cheap out on and what exactly you probably shouldn't. Before we begin though, I'd like to thank my sponsor A-Main Hobbies for supporting this channel. Anything you guys purchase using the link in the description below will directly support my channel as well. With that out of the way, why don't we begin? Possibly the most important and costly in the long term item you can buy for your car is going to be your tires. Tires are the first line of defense against bumps in the road and are the most important part of your setup for your car. Because of this, if you want it to be competitive, getting the best tires you can get your hands on will normally be the best bet. Preferably from a reputable company that is well supported both at your track and beyond, something like J Concepts. There are a lot of A-scale tire companies out there at the moment, and most of them will perform adequately. I might make a video on the future about different brands in the RC racing world, but for now the brands you see on screen right now are all the brands I've personally used and would recommend for 8th scale. For 10th scale, similar rules apply, just with fewer companies to choose from. The only issue there is that there really isn't a budget option for 10th scale tires like there is for 8th scale. One only really bit of advice I can give you is that if you want to save money on specifically tires, doing stock racing or using a less powerful motor in order to put less stress on the tires specifically might be a good idea. The next part I wish to go over will be your electronics. I'm talking about everything that's used to make your car go. Your motor, speed control, battery, servo, and even receiver. Unfortunately, there isn't much you can do to remedy the cost of a transponder, but what about everything else? Well, to start off we have the servo. Now, the servo you see here on screen, and the one that's been used in my Gamma N1E for a while now, is this, a Futaba CB701. This thing is a monster of a servo, and can handle pretty much everything you could possibly throw at it, from 10th scale high speed applications to 8th scale high torque applications. And to be honest, it should, because it costs $260 fucking dollars. I'll be honest though, this servo is way out of my league in terms of needs for a servo. It's programmable, which I'll probably never use, and is much faster and torqueier than a buggy like this would ever really need, to be honest. Still, it is nice to have more than you need and not be left wanting. However, much like transmitters, which I'll get to in a bit, your average racer doesn't really need a $250 servo. They just need something that's quick enough and strong enough to handle a lot of use and abuse. All the extra features aren't really needed. There are plenty of servos out there that you can buy that will serve your needs perfectly well for less than half what the Futaba unit cost. For example, this unit I've been testing from time to time called the Mach 1 S series, which costs a little less than what the Futaba unit I use costs in terms of its specs, it's very good for what it's used for, that being a budget-friendly 8th scale servo option. I'm still testing it for the moment, so I'll let you know what I think of this servo probably in a short video not too long in the future. Overall, you don't need to break the bank when it comes to servos, but going too cheap isn't entirely advised either. Now for batteries, things are a little bit different. How long a battery lasts and how well it performs entirely depends on how well you take care of it, not necessarily where it comes from, because to be honest, they all come from the same place. The two most important points of taking care of your battery is where you store it and how you store it. For one, putting your batteries on an extreme temperature environment like the fridge or a hot garage or car is going to be very bad for the longevity of the battery, as is leaving it at a critically low voltage or almost full charge. LiPo batteries don't like to sit at either for an extended period of time. As such, make sure to always storage charge your batteries when they're being, well, stored. Another good practice for running your batteries is to always make sure you don't over discharge them on the track or in general. This can damage the cells as well. And for the love of great Gordon the Big Engine, do not charge a regular LiPo battery on high voltage. It will blow up. With all that information swirling in your head now, you might be surprised to say you don't really need to drop big cash on batteries, unless you want something like a 4S shorty pack with 5mm battery connectors. You can find perfectly serviceable batteries that will last a decent amount of time for both 8th and 10th scale. Just make sure you know exactly what kind of battery in terms of dimensions and size you need for your specific car. I'll make a video for that in the future. For ESCs and motors, things can get a bit tricky for 10 scale. For 8 scale, you can get away with a lot of different cheaper ESC and motor combos that use regular bullet connectors for the motor wires, while also avoiding the bullet connectors on the battery connectors in favor of a more durable setup that you'd see in some bashers, like the XT60/XT90 connectors, or even a Dean style connector. For 10 scale, things can get a bit more fiddly. Since 10 scale cars are so specialized to run race-specific electronics, running anything that isn't a specific race spec ESC and motor can be a bit of an issue not worth solving by modifying and dremeling. In the end, it's much easier to just go with the race spec size electronics rather than try to make some other different kind of size work. Keep in mind though, I said race spec sized electronics. There are a few budget friendly 10 scale electronics you can grab that will work perfectly well for most stock racers for less than $100. Should you need an extra amount of power from ESC and don't want to spend $200+ on a mod one, I'd recommend this Hobbywing 120A ESC from Quick Run for less than $50. It can handle anything down to 5 turns in terms of 2S off-road use, which is what most people run in 10 scale anyway. For the motor, things are pretty simple when it comes to 10 scale racing. You don't really need a $170 motor from Exalt to be competitive. Like I'll say later in this video, it'll make your car faster, not you. Now there are a lot of specific upgrades that are carried by multiple different RC companies that can make a $400 kit into an $800 to $700 kit very quickly. Titanium screw kits, lightweight plastic internal gears, hand-picked $160 spec motors, so on and so forth. Now I'm not here to talk about what I think the stock class in the hobby should or shouldn't be. I'm here to simply tell you what is and isn't fully necessary to do well at most levels. A good example of this would be titanium screws I mentioned along with titanium turnbuckles. Yes, they are lighter than their steel counterparts, and if you wanted to save some grams, that would be a good way to do it. However, I'd argue the main reason why most people would run titanium screws and turnbuckles, or at least most people would actually get out of them, will be their durability and longevity. Titanium, I'm sure as you know, is a much harder metal than steel, and as a result, you won't see one snapping, bending, or stripping anytime soon. Also, because of some chemical reasons, titanium doesn't rust or degrade in the same way that steel does. Because of this, if you happen to live in an area that routinely races 10 scale outdoors, like the Upside Down or the Upside Down with more guns, then getting titanium screw kit for the simple reason to avoid rust may be a good idea. However, all you care about was the lack of rust, then perhaps a stainless steel screw kit will be better suited for you. Much cheaper and will last quite a long time. One thing that whether or not this is 100% necessarily will depend on your preferences and the thickness of your wallet. Another very popular upgrade that a lot of people do in the world of stock racing are ceramic bearings. Ceramic bearings are exactly what they say on the tin. They are ceramic bearings that are meant to spin much more freely and allow your car to move faster by reducing the rolling resistance. There are 2 types of ceramic bearing kits that you can find these days, and there are partial ceramic bearing kits for dirt and full ceramic bearing kits for carpet. Partial kits for 10 scale cars usually only cover the internal gears to reduce the amount of internal resistance in the driveline. The reason why these are the only ones used is because the outside bearings are usually more exposed to the elements than the internal bearings are. And I can guarantee you that ceramic bearings will not last if you happen to get them dirty. That's why if you only intend to run your car on an artificial surface like carpet or AstroTurf, you can pretty much put ceramic bearings throughout the entire car without any issues. Now I could go on with different upgrades and hop-ups for stock specifically, but I'd like to keep this video at a watchable length, so I'll cut to the point. All of the upgrades that I've mentioned thus far, from ceramic bearings, titanium screws and turnbuckles, lightweight internal gears, carbon fiber chassis, and top-of-the-line electronics like a Futaba 10PX and that servo I mentioned before, will make your car faster, but will not make you faster. The only thing that will make you faster is practice, and if you aren't able to practice during the week, even something like VRC will work in keeping your hands warm, so to speak, before the weekend comes around. As for whether or not these upgrades are necessary to be competitive in stock racing specifically, well, in my opinion, they aren't entirely. This is Will McIver, or at least his car, specifically a B7 4.2. More specifically, his completely stock B7 4.2, with none of the hop-ups I mentioned prior. No ceramic bearings, no carbon fiber side guards, or plastic internal gears. Just a B7 4.2 as it comes out of the box with tuning changes. This is his placing in the 2023 Masters of Dirt on an extremely tight and highly competitive stock class in 13.5 four-wheel drive buggy. If you're just listening, he placed 8th overall out of over 50 drivers. This pretty much encapsulates the entire point I'm trying to make with this video. Unless you are an absolute 1% of 1% top level driver, a lot of the top of the line stuff that many of them use aren't going to be necessary for you, and you can still perform very well without them. If you're looking to get yourself a racing kit, instead of these upgrades and hop-ups, spend more time investing in different shock, oils and diff fluids, springs, pistons, tires, sway bars, and everything needed to maintain your car for a little while, like bearings, shock O and X rings, and other wear parts. I'll be honest, even this last part I struggle with. These things will make you much faster and much more consistent than any hop-up or expensive piece of gear ever could. And with that, we've come to the conclusion. I know I've been gone for a bit, but I had a decent amount of mental baggage to work out for myself. I plan on upgrading more frequently like I did before, so if you like this video and would like to see more, feel free to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Also, if you want to support me another way, you can subscribe to my Patreon, where I post updates and teasers as to when my next videos are going to come out. Speaking of which, I'd like to thank my patrons Michael Williams, RC World Discord server, Casey Nix, Ben Reeves, Dave Armstrong, Joe Jenkins, Rob Bedingfield, Caden Merks, Ian Petrie, Logan Judkins, and especially Buddy Howell and Morrison Watt. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.